And I like what you mentioned there about layering support ults. You can do it sometimes, especially if, there's a diva bomb and stuff like that. If they're trying to go for those bigger bang combos, you might need that Lucio sound barrier to be timed perfectly to try and negate a lot of the damage coming from the self-destruct. But you're right, these two teams have very good ultimate discipline, and that's really what I'm going to look out for. Are there going to be any cracks in the system for both of these teams? Are they going to maybe get a little bit sloppy and get some nerves where they are layering the support ultimates, not using them at the right times, letting people die? That's really what I'm going to be looking out for, because it's going to be the small mistakes against these two teams that are incredibly even.
I will take a look, as it will be the Sanctuary, the first map set up for Busan, and you can already see how aggressive Outta Game wants to get, just getting all up in, and they're going to be able to take down Krondop very quickly. So you talk about the advantages and those little battles inside the battles. This time won by Outta Game's front line, and they will just continue to find a couple of more staggered eliminations, and as soon as this point unlocks, it will favor that of our team in red.
And I mean, talk about a Rhine battle right now. Progi already has his Shatter, whereas Krondop not even 25% to his yet. Huge. Already such a huge advantage for Outta Game, and it's very difficult in these situations for the team that loses that first fight to even come back in GOATs, because they're so snowballed behind with these ultimates. And right now, Progi gets a nice free Shatter. Doesn't really hit it, though.
Nah, shield is too much in the way, so Outta Game, they'll reset a little bit further backwards and look to see if Wayfast can get himself his Graviton Surge up for the potential next big game-changing ultimate. Rally will come up and be immediately used now for both teams. As you can see, the health pool's not looking so healthy for YAB. They're going to soft reset for a small instant just to get those back to near full, and then look to recontest it. Meanwhile, again, Wayfast at 90% charge plus. He's going to be able to get this Graviton Surge so quickly, already at 88%. Just needs to hit a couple more left-click tracks or a couple more right-click particle grenades, and he'll be there. Coffee, he's got his already, but again, Krondop has fallen, so can the front line even sustain it? Will be Outta Game that gets sucked into the Graviton Surge first, but Progi with the Fire Strike able to take down the rest of the front line, not even having to use an ultimate there. Was Outta Game to win the fight.
And Progi has already lapped Krondop in ultimate, and there, when he was in the Graviton, really nice counter shatter to negate a lot of the follow-up that was going to be coming up in that Graviton. Everyone went down for the side of Young and Beautiful, and they weren't able to follow up on the damage from the grab from Caffey, and Krondop, again, has been targeted time and time again, only at 72% towards his ultimate, whereas Progi already has 2 shatters this round.
And just moving right on through his Outta Game, knowing the advantage that they have, as they do have that Graviton Surge ready to go. Trolls also with the self-destruct sequence. Again, look at the discipline for Outta Game. Not using anything, just pushing everybody back, and they're able to find Krondop again, not having to use anything but a rally. That's absolute value for our Outta Game squad, and now at 85% and plus, they've got plenty of tools to sustain this last potential team fight.
This is a very high mountain to climb for Young and Beautiful here. They're going to try and rally to get some sustain into this next fight, but it's going to be very difficult. They don't have any support ultimates, and Wayfast has this Graviton online and ready to be used.
Looking for a target. You can see Young and Beautiful pretty split up at the moment. Overtime already here. Krondop does have an Earth Shatter. He's going to need to use this sooner rather than later, you would hope. No eliminations are here yet, but look how spread apart everybody from Young and Beautiful is. There goes the Earth Shatter. It is able to find 3, but now the Sound Barrier immediately used as soon as that comes through. And again, Koss still holding out of the Transcendence, but it looks like it's not even going to be used at this time through, as Young and Beautiful will flip the point and clean up the rest of the team fight.
I actually really like that Graviton from Coffee, solo grabbing Wayfast, understanding that Wayfast is a win condition with the Graviton that he has. So Coffee sections him off from the rest of the team. They clean up Wayfast and they clean up the rest of the team, but unfortunately, they still have this Graviton available to them. Huni or Young Savage needs to farm up towards the support ultimate if they want to have a chance to win, or else it's going to have to be on Danny to try and eat this Graviton coming out from Wayfast.
Take a look and see what happens. Danny is actually the only player on Young and Beautiful who has an ultimate at the moment, but you mentioned Huni very close, already to 90%. And now plus that as he continues to throw through. Progi has an Earth Shatter, and there was a Graviton Surge thrown out. It looks like there will be a pin from Progi. He'll turn around, look for the Earth Shatter, but can take it down too quickly by Caffey. Huni, he's trying to stay alive for as long as possible as this Transcendence has now faded away. Danny's still holding on to the self-destruct sequence. We've got an even point fight happening here, as you can already hear from Wayfast's perspective. He's maximum charge all the way up to 90% plus. Self-destruct goes out, and it finds Chalky Milk. That's pretty fortunate for Danny. It looks like Young and Beautiful on the back end of that will have the numbers, and they'll be able to sustain the point for now.
And Olu has had an issue throughout this entire season of Contenders Trials where he goes a little bit too aggressive and tries to fish for kills. And there, unfortunately, again, goes a little bit too aggressive after Caffey, ends up getting blown up. And you really need that Brigitte if you're going to be in these 5-on-5 fights without the Reinhardts available to you to keep that sustained, to keep that inspired healing. And Young and Beautiful have a good amount of ultimates to continue to sustain. And at 75%, this is one or two fights where they can probably win this match and come back from a 99-0 deficit.
A complete swing so far for Young and Beautiful, and Cappy will open things up with the Graviton Surge. Krogi waiting for an opportunity to drop the hammer. No, it was the shield bash that came through to block Krondop. The Earth Shatter comes out from Krogi, not going to find as much value as needed, but that mini stun into Krondop was enough to let the focus out of my game take him all the way down. Now it just comes down to cleaning up the rest of this fight. Points still in contest, and actually still is in control for Young and Beautiful now at 99%. So overtime all the way through way fast. Can you find an opportunity to drop this? You don't want to be too over-ambitious. You can see exactly where Danny is, and he'll throw it on the post pillar, and he'll lock in a lot of the frontline flip. He's the first one to fall. Sound Barrier used immediately afterwards throughout my game as they're looking to sustain through this point fight. But where's the rest of the damage follow-up? Everyone's kind of reset it for Young and Beautiful, but they can't go too far because, again, this overtime. The point's still in technically control
Hooney's down.
For our team in blue, and now with Hooney and Krondop being down, it looks like this will flip back, and this comes out of the respawns out of Young and Beautiful. Can they come through and fully contest this?
And it doesn't look like it's just going to be a sustained fight. It's only a matter of time before I think Out of My Game is going to be able to take this point. Way Fast is so very high charge right now, is putting the rest of Young and Beautiful in the microwave, and Young Savage is not able to get onto the point in time. And Out of My Game, maybe wiping a little bit of sweat off their brow as they almost got reverse swept there.
Yeah, that overtime stayed in effect for so long. Young Savage has never had a chance to fully get those roller skates back on point, but goodness gracious, that was looked to be a very one-sided round initially. Coming back into it, though, it looks like Young and Beautiful just getting a little bit used to warming up to this. It's not exactly late in the day in Europe, but it's not exactly early either. So, I mean, just kind of getting used to it, maybe.
Yeah, warm-up round.
As we go to downtown, this is probably the one map set that we'll see that things could get very interesting as far as the compositions go.
Yeah, and we sometimes see, Widowmaker on this map. We've seen some Ashe as well. You have a lot of good sight lines with the high ground that you can take. And Young and Beautiful, this doesn't shock me at all what they're sticking with. They're sticking with what they're tried and true with, the GOATS composition. Whereas Out of My Game, bring out this triple DPS comp. I haven't seen this specific variation of it just yet. And it actually might force Young and Beautiful to maybe make some decisions. Maybe they want to switch over to something else. Maybe get a Winston on Krondop to maybe dive onto this high ground and try and deal with tools here.
Yeah, and Hooney will actually switch as well over to Moira, so those will be the only two switches we see for right now. Point unlocks in 5 seconds, and you can see which direction Young and Beautiful wants to go. Just avoid the line of sight, not only of the Widow, but also the Ashe, who is also in play for Out of My Game. And Krogi's very low, fortunately able to get out of there. The adaptive shield was good enough to get him some extra sustain, but as the point opens up, it'll favor that of Young and Beautiful.
Yeah, Young and Beautiful here is just going to try and win a war of attrition a little bit. They're just going to try and get onto the point, make sure they're not in the sightlines of the DPS, avoid Olu at all costs in Krogi's pile driver. They're playing really well around this corner here. I like the positioning coming out from Young and Beautiful, and they already have 50% on the point.
A lot of poking back and forth so far, up to 20% now on that point capture percentage. You can see Krogi trying to move on through. Here comes the Bob. The Empress side also used in combination. Nice little headshot from Twolls. Looking for more. The EMP is also there, but where's the damage fall?
Nice.
There's one on the Caffey, but again, it comes down to point presence. That's the biggest weakness for Out of My Game. Fortunately, they're able to take down Krondop as well, and with that nice biotic grenade just behind, you can see the biotic orb coming out of the Moira, not doing any healing whatsoever, so full value this time around. The dynamite damage is good and well appreciated. The point not flipped yet, though, so as we continue to talk about this, Kenobi, again, this is a lot of valuable stall for Young and Beautiful.
Yeah, Twolls is getting a couple of headshots, but it's still, you're right, a lot of stall coming out from Young and Beautiful, already 50%, and really for Out of My Game, they need to get this point sooner rather than later. Looks like they're going to eventually get it. They're even committing the sound barrier to this, trying to sustain the best they can.
Yeah, why not? I mean, let this get as high as possible. It will reach 60%, and now it just comes to Young and Beautiful. You've used a lot of things in this, and it should just be, if at this point, just the, full reset coming out, but still 60% off that initial capture, even in staggered fashion, is totally worth it.
Not too shabby, and they're coming back into this fight with a couple of good ultimates. They're going to have the combo with the Graviton and the self-destruct as well. They can also Graviton and use that Coalescence. I like that Hooney has switched over to the Moira here. Moira definitely a lot better than Zen in these situations where you have these 3 DPS that can try and take you down.
Caffey, he'll throw out the Graviton Surge. It essentially just locks in Chalky Melt, but again, when that's one of 2 major supports, it's absolutely worth it. And Young and Beautiful have almost completely flipped this point. Minefield comes down, but everyone just kind of walks away for it for a moment. Bob is put on point, so an extra frontliner in the mix technically for Out of My Game, but it's not going to make a difference. The damage is too good all across the map. And Young and Beautiful, they'll clean up the point and they'll flip it back in their favor as it gets to closer to 70%.
So the best thing here about for Out of My Game and their win condition right now is that you have Olu's EMP. That's really where you're going to try and win this game from. They're going to make wholesale swaps over to a more GOATS shell composition here, but Olu has to be huge with this EMP if they want to have a chance to win 73%. If they lose this fight, they're most likely going to lose this round.
We'll take a look to see what happens as Olu does get that EMP online. Can they find a good opening? You can see Young and Beautiful is actually pretty separated, but Danny out of the mecha early. Translocator on top of the point, and it only finds Caffey. He is low HP, but the sustain is good, and yeah, you wanted a full value EMP. You're not going to get it this time around as Caffey's able to take down Twills. Progi also dropping away the Graviton Surge there just to clean up. And it looks like Young and Beautiful at 98% will find the team fight win, and this will likely be downtown going their way. We're heading over to Mecha Base tied 1-1.
Yeah, if you were going to solo EMP Caffey there, you really needed to get on him and make sure that he was going to go down. He was very close towards that Graviton. If you had taken him down, you might have had a better chance of winning that round. But again, EMP is one of those abilities, especially against a GOATS composition, where you should be getting at least 3 or 4 people since they're all clustered together. I think he translocated and maybe just didn't go as far as he wanted to with the EMP. And unfortunately, it didn't work out for him as well as he would have wanted. And that should have been a fight where they had much better chance. But unfortunately, they weren't able to take down Caffey. Caffey grabbed. No support ultimates to speak of, and Young and Beautiful are able to take a win, and we're going to be going to Megabits.
It almost kind of felt like, based on that translocator, man, again, you saw it. He just tossed it from the info booth right onto point, and it was almost like as much of a YOLO EMP as we've ever seen. Not necessarily saying he was completely blind, but it almost felt like that to a certain instance. But we'll switch, and now it's going to be out of my game. They're coming out with something, again, a little bit more out of the usual when it comes down to the Pharmacy, plus the Sombra. Again, just Pierogi playing on the solo front line. And again, this is a very interesting strategy because the whole idea here is that you find multiple facets of damage from all over the place and hope that you can disrupt the enemy team as much as possible. And you can see Young and Beautiful are just saying, all right, well, we're just going to stay all the way together. We'll drop down the elevator and come to point right as it opens up, which is exactly what happens. And now Olu, he's got a lot of targets in front of a nice biotic grenade coming through from Koss. And yeah, that will be enough of the sustain department depleted to allow Out of My Game to get their first team fight win here.
Koss really being the hero there, and great pile driver setup also from Progi. Progi was able to pile drive the shield, and the defense mixers weren't there. Koss hits a nice biotic grenade onto 3 people, and then they're able to clean up the fight. It's a matter of time before this point unlocks, and they're able to take it here.
Very smooth, although very close to his barrage, and Wayfast will have an EMP for this next round. So you talk about just combo potential. Those two together could do a very good job, especially you mentioned the pile drive impact when it comes to trying to take down shields. And though there are a couple of swaps here, Krondop, he'll play the Winston this time around.
And Young and Beautiful are in a real hole right now when it comes to their ult charge. Caffey not even that really close to that Graviton as well. Only Huni to speak of with that EMP, with that Coalescence, but the EMP comes out and the barrage to follow it up.
Yeah, the barrage only finds 1 though, but it is onto the Winston, which is the big target. But Coffee, he's been a thing of heroics before on the Zarya. You can see just how much damage he deals when you're in the face of that particle cannon. But again, he's pretty much by himself. He does take down 1, and Progi gets actually mini-stunned as well. So you have to be careful. He drops the minefield then, and will also be boosted just to try to keep him alive. And that will likely sustain it. Again, this is all delay tactics right now for Out of My Game. Try to get everyone back for as long as possible, but every second matters when it comes to getting this percentage up, and that's the biggest objective at the moment, as there's really no co-centric team fight. They'll throw the Bob out. Now Coffee with the Graviton Surge, trying to make sure that this point gets eliminated as fast as possible. Tolls will get jumped on. There's no way he lives through this, you would imagine, and it will be flipped in favor of Young and Beautiful, but it's not before, again, an extra 60% has already been found at the point.
And that's actually really good for Out of My Game that Caffey used grab there in that last fight. If Caffey was able to hold that Graviton, they would have had a big advantage going into this next fight, especially that Out of My Game is making wholesale swaps over towards this GOATS composition themselves. They would have such an advantage, and now it's going to be very difficult here for Krondop to see what he's going to be doing on that Winston. Can he dive in? It's going to be very difficult against a Reinhardt combination like this.
Nice little boost through from the side of Twills. The push over out of the Biotic Orb is able to take down Koss from Huni, who is within grasp range up top on that right side, as you saw just previously. Krondop will get on the point as the Sombra comes through, and you can already see Progi's running right on out of there. Does not look, the looks of that will charge backwards, and Young and Beautiful, they will sustain the point just before it could get turned, and they will find themselves at 36% and counting up now.
And it's so interesting that they won that fight off of Huni using a Biotic Orb, but not using the healing one, using the damage one. You never usually see Moira's use damage orb like that aggressively, but I love it. It kind of caught Koss off guard. Didn't expect he was going to get that much damage done to him, and now Young People have a great ultimate economy going into these next couple of fights, and with 50%, 1 or 2 fight wins is enough.
Oh, Krondop, you see what he wants to do. He wants to start using those big gorilla paws to push people out into the ocean, but missed the first jump just barely. Not going to make a difference, though. Left, right they go, and they find all the connection onto Olu without the Brigida, and now without the Lucio. It looks like Out of My Game will falter pretty quickly. This comes down to how much damage will funnel in. The answer is not much. A full team wipe comes out. Young and Beautiful looking solid.
Young and Beautiful did keep their Graviton. They kept the combo available for them as well, the Bigger Bang combo for this next fight. If they want to use it, Koss is going to have this Transcendence to try and counteract a lot of the damage coming up from the Graviton, and be on the lookout here for Wayfast. Wayfast needs to get this Graviton if they want to have a chance to try and win this map, because it is 86% right now for Young and Beautiful. Out of My Game needs to win this fight if they want to have a chance to win this map.
And again, Frogy, he's got no Earth Shatter, not as of yet. Cappy gets eaten though, so here we go. Out of My Game, an opportunity to move on in. Self-destruct will take down Wayfast though, so no opportunity for Out of My Game to utilize the Graviton Surge of their own. The Earth Shatter comes through, finds all of the support line, and charges into the wall is Young Savage. This is 100% still winnable for either team. It just comes down to finding these clutch eliminations. You can see how low Koss is, but he gets the Transcendence up just in time. Now it's up to Tolls and the rest of the front line just to stay alive for as long as possible. Try to get Wayfast back here. Here comes the Primal Rage from Kronz on top. He's nowhere near a Graviton Surge of his own, and this one will come off for free. And it looks like Out of My Game are going to clean this one up. They're going to flip this point, but it's not going to be in win condition territory yet. They still have a good 35% to go.
That was some really nice play from Out of My Game, hard focusing on the Caffey there. They stun him, they blow him up through all the damage, and he grabs, panic grabs, and then there was their tools, really good presence of mind to know that he's gonna panic grab, and then I'm gonna be able to eat it. The grab gets no value at all, and now Out of My Game have the ultimate advantage themselves. They have this rally for the next fight, so they're gonna have a lot of sustain, and they're going very aggressive. I love this coming out from them, Shift.
With the self-destruct as well, the Fade gets at least Huni away, but Flippy's gone, and now the Earth Shatter in the face of the spawn. Why not keep them here? And it looks like that might just be all that's needed. Maybe one more chance for Young and Beautiful to make some desperate swats and try to get down to the backside of the point, but it's going to be a pretty tall task to ask. You can see Savage there, but he's immediately taken down. I don't even think he was there in time to at least force an overtime. You can see the Coalescence now being used for Huni. Frogy trying to jump on in. We'll take out the mech from Donnie, so now it just comes down to, can Cappy make anything happen from the high ground? He has to touch, though. We'll jump on into the point, but there's just not numbers here, Kenobi, and Out of My Game have the win condition as long as they can sustain through this. The Graviton Surge was used with the sound barrier, and you can see the Transcendence in response from Koss, and it looks like the damage follow-up from Out of My Game will be good enough. It just comes down to finishing up these last couple of pesky targets, which they will do so. And one more desperate push with the adaptive shields from the Hammond, and that's not going to be enough. OMG, they'll take the first map and first blood in this decider game.
And again, I'm so impressed with the aggressive play that I saw coming out from Out of My Game there in that last fight, where it was basically a 99%, we lose and we don't get this point. The way that they hard focused onto Caffey there, understanding that he has the Graviton and he's their win condition. If we're able to get Caffey down, or even better yet, eat the grab and then get him down, that's our best case scenario to win. And they did a great job of targeting him down, making sure that he wasn't able to get the free grab that he wanted in that last fight. And then after that, they had an ult advantage going in that next fight, and they were able to snowball with that. I love the aggressive plays coming out from Out of My Game, right? We saw even when they won that last fight where the Caffey went down, they used the rally aggressively, went into the spawn basically of Young and Beautiful, put them there, and then unfortunately at 90%, you have to send Young Savage to the point by himself. He gets blown up immediately, and then you're just at a 5v6, you're trickling in, and Young Out of My Game looking very clean.
You know, the thing about it, too, is not just using the rally to get aggressive, but obviously with that, you can combo with the speed amp. But we've seen now twice, they did it on Downtown as well, where they throw out a self-destruct a little bit more aggressively, where you don't anticipate, you know, it almost feels like what we've seen so far, I guess is the way I'm kind of phrasing it, is a lot of our D.Va players have only used the self-destruct in one of two ways. Either one as an instant remech, mechanic, late in the fight, or two, when it's in combination of a grab or a shatter. But this time through, we're seeing Twills throw it out in an instance where it's, you know what, they've got nowhere else to go. This is going to be a zoning ult at the moment, and it actually ends up finding a couple eliminations. I like the use of it aggressively.
Yeah, and I'm not usually a fan of like the Kobe self-destructs. Those are like where you just throw it in and expect something to happen. But in those moments, you're right, where it's in an enclosed area, especially on Mecha Base, where you mentioned it, you don't have much places to run. Even getting Flippy in that last fight, you get one kill. That's the best case scenario. That's Brigitte gone, and especially with 80%, 90% that you have to fight for, it's not that much that you have to lose. Even if you don't get that kills, you zone them off the point for just a little bit longer, and getting those kills is just the cherry on top of the sundae that is winning that map. So I agree with you that I like that they are using these Gravitons a little bit more, or these self-destructs a little bit more aggressive.
It's all value at the end of the day. And again, if you're just joining in with us, this is our last day of EU Contenders Trials. This game in particular, you win and you are the number 2 at least, and you will be in Contenders for this upcoming season. So a very big game between these two squads, as we will be heading over to our hybrid map next. And we talked about how these teams have been evenly matched. So far, it's been panning out at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we almost got a reverse sweep on the first map as well, and I think that would have been that's kind of what we've been seeing throughout these maps so far, is that we've been seeing these close matchups, and I think we are going to be seeing 5 games, if I had to guess, coming up between these two teams based on how they've played so far in the past. 5 games with Shoes Money Crew, 5 games with Nos. A lot of these matchups are very, very close, and I think we're going to be seeing that. It didn't look convincing for either side, really. A few mistakes on either side that could have led to that game going a little bit differently in the other person's favor, but I think we will be seeing a very close series, and this is definitely one you want to watch.
Oh, absolutely. Again, it's been, everything kind of culminating up to this for, some of these players, like Cappy and Huni and all of them. They came out of the Open Division. They were on the Falafel's Avengers team that finished second in Open Division. And now with the chance to just come all the way through, I mean, you talk about the definition of path to pro, and this is 100% it. You just go straight from Open Division and you get second place there and you have a successful Contenders trials and all of a sudden you're in. I mean, absolutely big looks for some of these players, and even the teams that are coming up later on today, still a lot to play for. As traditionally the European Contenders scene has a lot of kind of handpicked selections out of the Contenders trials when it comes to reforming some of these rosters. So definitely a lot to play throughout at the moment. But again, when we're in this kind of 3-3 heavy centric meta, it's no better place to go than to Europe, who's been playing this composition for so long.
Yeah, I mean, we even saw it in OWL. Paris brought out the GOATS composition and looked very well on it. And it seems like EU just loves their tank play. And that's kind of been a theme throughout all of esports when you talk about EU. They just love their tank play in other games as well. And in Overwatch specifically, we saw it in World Cup as well. They kind of just came out on tanks and played it almost better than anyone else did. So I think this is definitely the region where if you're looking for strong tank play, you are going to find it here. A lot of other regions have very strong things. We casted China, I hold shift, and China's a lot of good DPS play and a lot of chaos, I would say, is what I would classify them as. But EU is definitely a region where if you want to see good tank play, good GOATS play, you're going to be finding it here in EU.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the biggest thing, especially when you mention players like Progi, who've been in the scene for so long. Just a huge veteran, a big name when it comes through. It looks like our next map coming up, as we're getting word, will be King's Row, which you talk about needing to have solid frontline gameplay. I would say that's probably one of the pinnacle maps when it comes to having that as a staple.
Yeah, and I wonder if Out of My Game is going to be playing more DPS compositions, because we saw on Busan they did bring out a couple of times. They brought out the triple quad DPS compositions, and Young and Beautiful was more tending to stick towards that quad, or that 3-3, what they're comfortable with, what they always play. And I think here is definitely a map where 3-3 shines, but here is also a map where you can find variations in different compositions. We saw Sombra played a lot yesterday as well, so anything can kind of happen here.
Well, this first point as well, as far as the support gameplay goes, we traditionally can see a little bit more of a heavy flex onto the Ana, just because you can get these little cheeky angles where you can throw down a really big biotic grenade. We won't see that here for Outta My Game as they come out of spawn defensively. They will be playing the Sombra, though, which you mentioned, and I think, again, when it comes down to tight corridors, playing up against what is traditionally a 3-3, you can find a lot of disruption on the back end of a good hack or a good EMP.
So actually here for Young and Beautiful, what I would like to see, if they understand that there is going to be a Sombra, I'd actually like to see an Ana coming out from them, because that way you're going to get free anti-nades. There's no D.Va on the other side to eat them, so that every nade that you hit is probably going to get some value, either 2 or 3 people. And anti-nade, as we know, is one of those, if you're hitting multiple people at the same time, it's basically a guaranteed fight win if you're able to follow up on the damage. So it looks like it might not happen just yet, but it's something I'd like to see from Young and Beautiful to try and counteract this composition coming out from Out of My Game.
Take a look to see what happens as we move right past the Mondada statue. Cappy already to 50% charge, and that's very dangerous because he can get up to full. Yep, 100% charge already, and now it comes down to essentially holding W. No shield in the way as the Reinhardt for Out of My Game already down. Rogi has fallen early, and Cappy's damage is so good. He does get Discord Orb, but he comes right around the backside flank, and there's extra damage all over the place. He does fall, but again, 2 ticks already made progress on A. This will likely be the full. It just comes down to if there will be one more little charge through as Progi has returned to the battle. They will come on in, and I like this soft reset for Young and Beautiful. Just pull back a little bit, wait for Cappy to get here, and then re-engage.
Yeah, and actually that pick from Wayfast on the Cappy meant a lot more than we might have expected at the start, because Wayfast now is very close to that EMP. If he's able to farm it up before this next fight, that's actually a really good case for them.
Oh, goodness. And Huni, he actually had to go into the Transcendence early, and they still don't save Cappy. And now the Graviton Surge will lock everybody in because, again, there are no support ultimates here to keep him alive, but there's no follow-up. Exactly. I'm a little confused on that. A very ambitious Earth Shatter from Progi. Didn't actually find much on the stun front, but they still find the eliminations that are needed. Thrown up in a bunch of trouble. We'll find just a mini pin that's not going to result in any eliminations. And You talked about sustaining. It was a soft reset for Young and Beautiful, but now it's almost a full hold from Out of My Game.
And the worst part about this is that Wayfast is going to have his ultimate for this next fight, and Young and Beautiful only are really going to have this Sound Barrier to try and counteract it. They're going to have the Shatter as well, since Progi used his in that last fight. Crown Drop has to be kind of huge with it because they don't really have much else. They're not going to have the combo with the Graviton and the Self-Destruct. Young Savage has to be very careful here because if he Sound Barriers too early, they're going to have the EMP on the other side for Out of My Game to counteract all the shielding.
Keep your eyes on Wayfast here. Now, as you see the Shatter come through, that one will hit just about everybody but Young Savage, who's able to come back through with the Sound Barrier defensively. That's actually pretty big, as now Young and Beautiful have potentially a chance to move through, but they've already lost their front line and Huni again, so you think that there's not much of an opportunity to really commit to this fight, and they will soft reset back. But again, Krondop having used the Earth Shatter, Young Savage having used the Sound Barrier and the Rally Down. Oh goodness, we're starting to get to maybe one more time around that they'll find those ultimates.
Yeah, this is going to be a Graviton fight for this next fight. It's going to be Kathy versus Tools, and both of them come out at the same... But there's the Transcendence out from Cos.
Oh, and able to come back up on his Huni as well, though. So actually well sustained, as Tools is the only one to fall on the back end of both those grabs being used. Kathy, you can see how aggressive he wants to get. He's fully charged up and wants to get behind Progi's shield, and he'll do so. Progi falls, and it looks like the support line will melt shortly behind it, but a very good hold out of OMG. They're able to take a lot of time off the clock. It will still come through with about a little bit under a minute left, but still, that could have been a lot worse, and you got to take props to the defense for holding on for as long as they did.
And they're going to get some nice staggers here for the side of Young and Beautiful, try and get some kills to maybe make it a little bit easier for them to push into this next point. But the really cool thing about that last fight was they were able to blow up and melt Tools while he was in Graviton, and then Kathy is just free to just do as much damage as possible, be that hyper carry Zarya, no Zarya on the other side. It's a 5v6, and you're able to roll through that point. And now, Out of My Game is going to be rewarded with a nice defensive time here. They are like maybe 2 minutes is when probably Young and Beautiful is going to get to this last point, so a great defense coming out from Young and Beautiful.
And all of that push, you know, great as far as the offense for Young and Beautiful. You find some staggers, but the payload does not move nearly as far as I think they wanted. The EMP gets combined probably with the Earth Shatter. Wow, what a good timing that was from Chalky Milk to try to keep everybody alive. The engagement didn't really go as planned for OMG. The damage follow-up wasn't really on the back end, and well, you see Kathy able to get his Graviton Surge down, not really being affected by the EMP whatsoever, and Young and Beautiful win the fight and move on through.
And Out of My Game now is going to be switching back over to the D.Va. I like this decision. The Sombra hasn't been really getting the value that you wanted. It got that first EMP, but that EMP in that last fight didn't really get the combination you wanted. If you're going to be using EMP, you got to have the follow-up, and unfortunately, Progi didn't really hit the money shatter that he needed when all the shields were down.
Now it's up to Krondop. Can you make a play here for Young and Beautiful to keep this push moving? He'll drop the shatter and, well, doesn't really find anything but Kos, who gets an armor pack and stays alive, no problem through it. Now the Sound Barrier for Young and Beautiful, gonna get aggressive. The Graviton Surge in response to try to counter from Twills. All of a sudden, Out of My Game have held this payload for now, but the eliminations are not in their favor as they lose Progi, Twills, and Olu. And with those numbers fading away, Young and Beautiful, they'll find a successful Streets phase.
And someone who I've been really impressed with watching in these last couple of fights is Young Savage. Young Savage is doing a great job of playing kind of a Reddit Lucio, going into the back line, or front line rather, with the Brigitte and the Reinhardt and booping them into the enemy team. That's something you always love to see from your Lucios, displacing those heavy tanks and putting them in a position where they have to really, the enemy team has to force resources to try and even save them. And even at that, they're so far deep into the enemy team that it's basically impossible sometimes.
Keep your eye on Cappy. He's got a Graviton Surge. We'll say that often. There it goes. Payload exactly where he'll place that one down. Self-destructing combination. Will not find any eliminations, but Krondop has found a lot of free charge and will drop an Earth Shatter. It does stun Olu, but he got pushed back mid-channel of that Earth Shatter, so he's not going to follow up on his zone ability. And that will just be a reset coming out, and now it just takes a look at Out of My Game. Can you find a way to maybe sustain this a little bit more convincingly? They've done a pretty decent job of pausing the payload, but can you flip this battle completely in their favor? They haven't done a very great job lately of winning out a full team fight. They would desperately love to see that.
Huni is going to have the advantage for this next fight with Transcendence, so maybe they'll try and Transcendence a little bit aggressively with this Graviton that Kathy is going to be charging up very, very quickly. Krondop is getting insanely low, though.
Oh, but Progi's also low and gets dropped before he can take the Earth Shatter out, and now OMG need to back up because Twills is also falling very low, and Cappy is full charge, and there is a D-Met coming out, Olu also dropping, and all of a sudden things have gone disastrously long for OMG.
But Out of My Game coming back in this next fight, they are going to get one last recontest, and they are going to have a lot of ultimates to speak of. They're going to have both support ultimates, the combo with the bigger bang as well. Young and Beautiful also is going to have their support ultimate in the combo with the bigger bang, so it's going to be a battle of bigger bangs here. Who has the bigger bang?
the biggest of the bangs, you supposedly might say. And again, look at Cappy just waiting for an opportunity. Things will be started for OMG. Immediately they're spotted by the Graviton Surge. Self-destruct the backline. Oh, and the Shatter finds himself at least 4, but Hootie was still in the Transcendence, and Young Savage able to hit the sound barrier immediately afterwards, but there's still ultimates in favor of Young and Beautiful as they're trying to push on through. The speed boost was there, but no eliminations in the back end, and Chalky Milk is looking for the boots off the map, but not quite able to find the successful route that he was looking for, so it will be a little bit of a reset. Cappy's at full charge, and I'm sure Incom just thinks, let me farm up another Graviton Surge. I'll have it in about 10 seconds, guys. Don't you worry about it. But Wayfast has got one of his own. He actually wins the race this time through, as again, both grabs were used. Krondop will find a Shatter, at least onto one, but gets a Shield Bash in response, and Foles will be the first one taken down. Now Cappy, if you talk about it, yep, he's very close to getting that Graviton Surge. Wayfast will use his, but you only find Young Savage, and now it just comes down to using the last bit of damage needed, and with this Graviton Surge, Young and Beautiful, they'll find themselves a successful push as soon as they take care of the Lucio, which they're able to do, but it was narrow. Out of my game gave themselves a chance at it.
Yeah, and I really like that Shatter actually onto tools coming out from Krondop. Krondop understands that if I am able to shatter this D.Va, get her out of mech, Cappy is eventually going to get this Graviton. And as you saw, he was rewarded with a really nice Graviton that he didn't really have to work for because the D.Va wasn't there and no threat of being eaten. And then once they get that Graviton, they're able to snowball and kill everyone inside of it. No support ultimates to speak of. And then they're able to win that point with 21 seconds. And after the way the first point went, you definitely take that for Young and Beautiful. Any time is good time for them after the way that it looked pretty bad coming out from that first point.
You know, I got to give props out to Krondop as well. I mean, there have been a couple of instances throughout trials. I've actually had the pleasure of casting just about, I think, almost every single one of their games, maybe the exception of one. And Krondop sometimes has just thrown out some very ambitious Earth Shatters. He's been playing a lot smoother and a lot better with these lately, especially considering how, you know, stalwart the defense has been from OMG. Progi has done a very good job of trying to counter those out and bait and flash those shields for as much as possible. So you talk about Young Savage, but also I got to say Krondop has played very well so far today.
Yeah, and the thing about both of these Reinhardt's, Progi and Krondop is they have a lot of quick on the trigger shatters, right? And sometimes they don't work, but sometimes you're able to get those money shatters, and they're not my favorite shatters. I would like to see a little bit more usage of the Brigitte shield bash, because even though you can't bash through shields, you can still walk behind the shield and get that free combo. And that's something we haven't seen a lot of recently from a lot of these EU trials teams. We don't see that combo used anymore, and I think it can still be valuable. Just you need to make it, it's not as easy bake combo as it was used to be, where it's just like, oh, I can walk in front of the Reinhardt, shield bash, and then we're going to get the shatter. You got to work for it a little bit more, but I still think it can work. It's something I'd like to see a little bit more from both of these teams.
We'll take a look to see what happens with OMG as they come out on offense, and no pause here. They're saying, let's just go ahead and dive on in. We know what we're playing. We'll figure out what they're playing here in just a moment. Let's try to get Cappy's Graviton Surge, you know, get him that third ability quickly, as he typically has it very quick on. Already up to 70% charge, now above that. Progi's very low. Again, you talk about those shield bashes. That time it came through, but Olu was actually the first one to fall. Nice little projected barrier just to make sure that Twills can retain his mech, but you still have to be careful because Young and Beautiful will punish, and you can see how aggressive they want to get, but a very good reset for OMG. They'll just reset back, find all 6, and come back into this fight again.
And this has been a little bit of an issue with Out of My Game so far throughout EU trials, is that Olu plays a little bit too aggressive on the Brigitte sometimes, and goes down first in a lot of these fights. And when you lose that Brigitte that early, it just gives credence for Young and Beautiful to just say, okay, you don't have Brigitte, you don't have the AoE Inspire healing, it's a 5v6, we can go in and roll over you. And again, it happens again. Olu cannot keep dying like this first.
I mean, do you think this is more of just an open-ended question for you here, Kenobi, as we hit the reset? Is, you know, Olu is traditionally a damage-based player. Do you think he's just getting a little impatient? The fact he's playing more of a, you know, patience kind of biting hero?
And I think with Brigitte, it's a little bit interesting because it seems like there's kind of this theory around Brigitte that, you know, she's very strong, she doesn't die at all, but she does only have 250 health. And if Olu's going in and going this deep, a lot of resources have to be used to try and keep him alive. And speaking of keeping alive, none of Out of My Game is going to be alive after that shatter from Krondop.
Wow, what a play. Goodness, a full team wipe. I'm not even 100% sure how Krondop was allowed to get that Earthshatter off for free. It was pretty well telegraphed. I mean, we saw it right into the screen. He just kind of walked up, hit Q, and everyone fell, so a little bit of a misplay there from OMG, but yeah, you talk about it, Olu again, quick to fall, he uses the rally, and now it just comes down to, you know, again, we're just a little bit above 2 minutes, and we haven't really seen a full engagement out of my game yet.
Out of My Game is in such an ultimate hole right now, and there's the Graviton. The Transcendence is going to come out well. Let's see if this bigger bang combo gets anything.
Oh, but Hooney's already dropped for Young and Beautiful, so now it's up to Progi to try to make a response. Krondop will throw another one of those Earth Shatters in. It will stall, but not find any eliminations. So again, you need Hooney to get back with this Transcendence. Young Savage is forced into a very early sound barrier, so all of a sudden an opportunity for Out of My Game to push on in, and you can see exactly how bullied Young and Beautiful is being without that Transcendence on the table. This will be at least the first tick of progress. If they get the DMAC, it will surely be more, but I'm not even sure at this point, based on the zone that we're seeing out of My Game, if there will be a recontest. Not out of the picture yet, but it looks like with this third tick coming through, it will be Young and Beautiful letting this one go and just setting up for a Streets defense.
And Kos comes in so super clutch in that last fight. He right-clicks Hooney, who had ultimate and wasn't able to transcend through all the damage that came out through. And unfortunately, he goes down and they're able to continue through that fight. A very aggressive grab here used.
Yeah, Young and Beautiful will find one onto Olu again, but immediately responded. A nice little charge through from Progi. Tolls will find himself too, and it was a decent idea for Young and Beautiful, but the sustain that came out of Hooney was just not enough to get through Progi, and a self-destruct, and Out of My Game, they'll find themselves another clean team fight and a lot of free progress here in our second stage.
And that was a lot of ultimates committed from Young and Beautiful into that last fight. You saw the grab and you saw the Transcendence coming out to try and sustain on that point and win that fight. The idea there was you win that fight and then you're able to spawn camp and take off a lot of time, but unfortunately, what you really did here is you just put yourself in a hole in terms of ult charge. Wayfast is going to have this Graviton much sooner than Coffee. Cass still has his Transcendence, and there's Olu's Rally as well. The only person here for Young and Beautiful that can do anything is Krondop with his Earth Shatter.
Oh, he tries for a really cheeky one. He does put one down, but Kos immediately able to respond with the Transcendence, and Out of My Game have all the tools needed to push through the second one, and there it is. Progi dropping an Earth Shatter of his own. Caffey will be focused down. Donnie is very close to being taken out of mech as well. This comes down to dealing with this rally armor, which Out of My Game, they're just going to hold on to the payload for now, not push any further forward. This will give Young and Beautiful a chance to recontest with Wayfast. He's so close to a Graviton. This comes down to will he be able to put it down in time. You can see Hooney and the Transcendence is going this one out for as long as possible. The focus target prioritization for Young and Beautiful is decent, but not good enough. The Graviton does get off. Young Savage with the with the sound barrier immediately afterwards will not be enough to sustain them through this. And it looks like Out of My Game will be able to have the damage to burst through and find themselves the second checkpoint.
And again, it's a lot of ultimates used from Young and Beautiful to try and sustain on this point. You did take away a minute of time, or maybe 30 seconds of time, but you used everything. You used your Transcendence and your sound barrier for that last fight. And Out of My Game is going to come into this next fight with so many support ultimates. They're going to have such a better sustain available for them coming into this next fight. And again, the only thing really that you're going to have for Young and Beautiful is Coffee maybe gets this Graviton, and Krondop has to hit another huge shatter. A lot of this has been on Krondop being able to hit these clutch shatters, and they're just not hitting the best.
It kind of feels like, for me, a lot of this game so far defensively for Young and Beautiful has been the fact that they're not dealing with both sustain ultimates at one point in time. Krondop will find himself the Earth Shatter first. Out of My Game will be without their Reinhardt player as a Fire Strike. Unfortunately, found all of the rest of the HP of Progi. This comes down to, will there be any more engagement here? Out of My Game has done a pretty decent job of knowing when the team fight has been lost and just backing up, but they will have a couple of extra victims in this battle. It just comes down to Wakafi. He's been known to throw it down a Graviton Surge here once or twice before, and immediately Progi, goodness gracious, they got him into this tight corridor, and the Earth Shatter is good enough to take down Cappy, and it actually forces Hooney out of the Transcendence. That's a huge win for Out of My Game.
It's massive for them. They baited them all the way back, and they hit the 180 shatter onto him, and now Out of My Game can just run over the rest of Young and Beautiful coming into this next fight.
This is absolute disaster for Young and Beautiful. They have to go all the way back to spawn. Look how fast they're coming into it. The Graviton Surge will actually lock everybody in place as well. Progi finds himself too. The self-destruct won't find anything, but again, this is progress on the payload. It just comes down to one last player. That was Krondop that was there. Danny can't get there in time, and whoa, we've got to break that down a little bit more in depth, because that was the ultimate bait and switch coming out of OMG.
Bait and switch is the best word I would use from Out of My Game. They pulled back the entirety of Young and Beautiful towards their spawn, thinking, okay, we have a 4v6 here. We're going to have such a better time, but you're fighting into respawns, and those respawns when you're in that corridor are so incredibly close. And again, Progi hits a money shatter onto Caffey. Caffey goes down, and when you lose Caffey and you're making those aggressive pushes, you have no damage I hold shift. It's just gone out of the window, and then OMG, great presence of mind to just take that advantage and run all the way to the point and get that last tick using that Graviton so aggressively into the spawn of Young and Beautiful. I love that play coming out from Out of My Game.
And again, this entire defense that we just saw from Young and Beautiful just felt like they were never able to get as many tools as they needed to. Young Savage would have a sound barrier, but Huni wouldn't have Transcendence, or vice versa. Or it'd be Krondop would have a Shatter, but Caffey wouldn't have a Graviton Surge. It just never felt like Young and Beautiful were ever on the page they wanted to as far as being able to pull off a successful team fight. And the one time they did is when they got bait and switched. It was absolutely brilliant play for Out of My Game the entire way through.
It felt like it was a little bit greedy sometimes with their ultimate usage, right? Sometimes
true.
Using both of those ultimates, you know, to sustain on for 30 seconds of the last point. If you had not done that and just let them take that second point, and then you're able to continue to sustain with those ultimates on the second point, you at least have that fight. But unfortunately, they're using these ultimates too aggressively, not thinking about the next fight. They're thinking about this fight. We need to win this fight. But unfortunately, sometimes fights you don't win all the time. You need to keep them for the next one.
Young and Beautiful will rotate all the way through the Alderworth Hotel and come right out the back end, and this will actually force Out of My Game onto the opposite side of the point. You got to be careful, because one good grab or one good Earth Shatter in those tight corners could spell disaster. And Young and Beautiful, they will actually rotate back again through the hotel. So just trying to find someone out of position, potentially from Out of My Game, maybe a free target, but there's too much discipline on this OMG squad for let that happen. Now with just 20 seconds left, Young and Beautiful needs something to go their way. They are close to a grab. 82% Caffey much faster to it than Wayfast is at the moment. This comes down to will they find any success. You can see
Caffey's
up top.
Caffey's
oh
dead.
no! Caffey gets taken down Out of My Game. Will they just go forward here? Honey is able to find one, but
he's dead. He had trance.
And there's no way for them to contest this without the Transcendence. It's just Young Savage. He's going to be on the delay tactics for as long as possible. Overtime is here, but it's the desperate swamps already coming through. You see the Wrecking Ball, you see the Tracer flips, and everything's getting melted out of the microwave that is this particle cannon of Wayfast. He doesn't have his Graviton Surge yet, but he will get one in clutch timing, and there's just not big enough health pools here to sustain through it. Oh my goodness, the clutch pick from Out of My Game. This offense went nowhere quick.
Out of My Game has done this a lot during a lot of these fights, and we saw it back on Mecha Base as well, where they are instantly trying to get Caffey, right? Every time that they see Caffey is high charge and close to that Graviton, they instantly just full dive onto Caffey, and unfortunately, there's not enough sustain coming out from Young and Beautiful. I'm not sure if they're don't have armor pack available, if there's no self bubble available, but Caffey is getting blown up in a lot of these fights very early, especially when you're close to Graviton, because if Caffey lives and is able to hit that Graviton, cost isn't anywhere near Transcendence, right? And it's just based at that point, it's like Tools has to eat it. So really good aggressive play from Out of My Game and understanding who the win condition is for Young and Beautiful to win, and it's Caffey, and Caffey goes down very quickly.
I mean, he's good, flat out. We've seen him do heroic things in the past.
He's not 1v6. He's not. 1v6 is a very hard thing to do in Overwatch. It's possible, definitely possible if you have all the sustain, but unfortunately, they're just not enough sustain for Young and Beautiful and for Caffey. And Out of My Game, 2 minutes and 43 seconds, so they're not in the same position that Young and Beautiful were in, where they have to basically have one fight, and that's all we have. They can maybe, farm up some ultimates, play it a little bit slower, but they need to get not caught in the sense that we can play this as slow as we want. 2 minutes and 43 seconds is not that much, and they need to really worry about their ultimates, maybe try and, if they can get a pick onto Young and Beautiful, that's the best case scenario, because Young and Beautiful, no one can die on their team. If anyone dies, it's just going to give credence for Out of My Game to just go in and take this point and take a 2-0 win, or 2-0 lead, rather.
All right, well, keep your eyes on Olu. He's been the one, at least in their previous offense, that, again, got punished over and over again. He's already half HP, actually, as well. But look at this little speed amp coming around the left-hand side of the Omnic statue. Now just comes down to, can you find that first elimination? When Chalky Milk goes down, you have to get out if you're Out of My Game. Just reset here. Don't farm up too many. Don't give away too many ultimates. But they're going to stay in this one for a little bit longer. Maybe think they had an opportunity. But everybody on the Young and Beautiful is so healthy. And Progi also falls way fast. Will surely fall for this as well. And I would have just loved to see them soft reset here, Kenobi, because simply this is just Young and Beautiful getting up, getting aggressive, and getting a lot of free ultimate charge.
And the absolute hero in that last fight is Flippy on the Brigitte. Chalky Milk went into the backline to try and boot the Reinhardt towards the rest of the enemy team. Flippy hits a very nice shield bash whip shot combo onto him, blows him up almost immediately, and Chalky Milk is punished for his over-aggressiveness. And now Young and Beautiful have the ult advantage going into these next fights.
Rally's being utilized. Caffey close to grab. Can Progi find an opportunity? Oh, he finds 4, but he misses the charge. There's no follow-up. So now Young and Beautiful can come on in. It's self-destruct, trying to sustain with the Transcendence, and the self-destruct is good because Progi got charged, and now all of a sudden we're in very much so draw capabilities because, again, so many ultimates were used. We'll still have Kromdop with an Earthshatter. We'll still have Wayfast on the opposite side with the Graviton. It's going to come down to who can hit more. Oh, but Wayfast loses all of his charge. That's pivotal.
Progi hit the monster shatter, but unfortunately the follow-up damage wasn't there, and he doesn't hit the charge that he wanted to in that last fight. Absolute disaster of a fight coming out from Out of My Game. Young and Beautiful, gonna be close towards this Graviton from Kathy. He's very high charge right now. Wayfast has his own. No support ultimates. Young Savage is gonna have his, though.
Out of My Game will start things off with the Graviton Surge, and again, Young Savage, you mentioned it, the sound barrier is already there. Kathy, can you farm this up? We'll drop one. Oh, but he gets taken down before he can connect with the ground, so now all of a sudden, it's winnable for OMG. The rally has to be used. Huni is down. Kathy, you've been so good in the past. Can you make something happen? He's gonna give it a go. He's full charge. The Graviton Surge is there, and they find the support line, so it's not over yet. Here comes the desperation swap. The Wrecking Ball's here, but Progi is no longer on the field. This is going to be a sustained defense. Kenobi, are you kidding?
Kathy comes up absolutely crushing that last fight with that Graviton. Out of My Game is going to have one last shot at this. They have both of their support ultimates coming into this next fight, most likely. It's going to be a sustained battle. Young and Beautiful have nothing. Huni needs to get this Transcendence if they want to have a chance to win this next fight.
They're doing it, Kenobi. They're doing it, but one more go. Koss has got himself a Transcendence. The self-destruct is being used. The pile driver using. Come on, action! Danny is brilliant. Oh my goodness, the timing was perfect. The sound barrier is used on top of the Transcendence, and now just Young and Beautiful need to outweight those support ultimates, and all of a sudden they will find themselves the draw. Oh my goodness, they're gonna do it, and we're gonna be going into map 3 1-0 after the draw. Holy smokes, though.
What a last fight that win. What a hold coming out from him. Whew, I gotta take a breather right there. I hold shift. That was an insane fight at the end there.
Wow. But again, you know, there weren't that many tools. Kromdop has to make a desperate swap just to get it back on the point of the Wrecking Ball, and he finds full value with that big pile drive right as the self-destruct comes through. They take down the front line, and that's win condition. But you talk about, again, the focus has to be taken down Kafi. If he's allowed to stay alive, you can see what kind of plays he's able to make. That's the first defense. Oh my goodness, it's 4-on-6. He drops the grab, takes down the support line by himself, and the D.Va can sustain then at that point. He's very much so only frontliner needed if there's sustain behind it. Kenobi, we've got ourselves one heck of a game.
Yeah, we do. And Kathy, again, came up really clutch. So I like that you mentioned that Graviton was absolutely huge because it was their only win condition at that point. And it looks so good for the side of Nas, Out of My Game in that last fight where Progi shatters, but he shatters at like sub 200 health and gets absolutely blown up. And right there, I was like, okay, there's no Reinhardt. This should be an easy win for the side of Out of My Game. But unfortunately, they just don't push the pedal to the metal, right? They play a little bit more conservatively. They say Progi's dead. We can just walk this in kind of. But at that point, you need to really just go. You can't let Kathy charge up towards this Graviton. You can't let this Transcendences come out as well. And it was so close for Out of My Game. They had it like right in their hands, and then they let it slip.
You give Kathy an inch and he'll take a mile or a kilometer, I suppose, if you're talking in European terms. Absolutely. But again, just to get you guys caught up, if you're just joining us for the first time here at EU Contenders Trials, this is the match right here. The top two at the end of the round robin will be admitted into full-on proper contenders, and these are the last two teams fighting for that last spot. So you win and you're in, you lose, and you're just hoping that maybe you performed well enough individually to get picked up. So, Kenobi, this has been a close one. As much as we would have expected to be, we're going to be going into, again, finishing out all 4 maps, even though we will have essentially a decided winner after this.